the first question. What is the correct method of asubha for the attainment of anagami? Does one go through the 32 paths investigating before lust arises, or go touring their mind, waiting for the kama raga to arise and then combat it with asubha?
Oh, be prepared, I would say, is the message of the Buddha. Be heedful, apamada, be prepared. So don't wait for lust to arise to develop some methods of dealing with lust and sensual desire. Even before it's arisen, get into the habit of contemplating your body in one way or another, practicing mindfulness directed to the body. As you said, the 32 parts of the body, familiarize yourself with them as a meditation. Run through them, get to know obviously what they are. Practice sitting there or walking as well. You can do it when you're walking as well. Putting your attention on each part of the body, visualizing it, asking yourself questions about it, noticing it in daily life, because every part of the body will teach you things. Remind you that your body is smelly. However much perfume or deodorant you put on it, it's smelly, and notice that smell, because that's part of the asubha practice, isn't it? Your body is smelly, it's getting older, changing, doesn't always look so good. Even the outside parts that you try to make look really nice, they don't look so nice if you're under investigation. And then if you bring up the internal parts of the body, they're not very nice at all in terms of look. So do that, investigate the 32 parts. If it suits you, investigate the 4 elements and how those 32 parts break down into the 4 elements. And you can do it with things associated with the body as well. Like, notice how your clothing gets dirty, and that's why we have to change clothing and wash clothing. Notice how food has its unattractive side, and especially once it goes into your body, it becomes unattractive and then comes out the other end, very unattractive. Experiment with these different aspects of contemplation of the body and the unattractiveness of the body. Don't wait till you're full of lust, because you probably find it very difficult at that moment. Your mind won't want to do it, especially if you're new to the practice. Do it when you're feeling calm, when you're in a good frame of mind. Try it, even just for a few moments. And even just in daily life, notice the unattractiveness of the body in very ordinary situations. How as I said, your body smells, your body doesn't always look so good, your body is constantly letting liquids out and shedding bits, hairs drop on the ground. Your body dirties, bed sheets and clothes, and wherever you sit, wherever you move around, the body is making that place dirty and smelly. There's plenty of information coming your way if you open your mind to it. So you have to practice mindfulness directed to the body. And then you start getting that information, and that information is teaching you. It's not all beautiful, attractive, desirable as you previously thought. So do that, be preemptive, do that already in your life. And that's just bringing your mind to be mindful of the way things are. You're not trying to create some view that's a false view that everything is totally unattractive and ugly and the world is an ugly place, because that will probably bring up a lot of aversion and depression maybe. You're simply bringing your mind to witness or observe the way things are, to do with the body, to counter sensual desire. And if you've been practicing that for a while, well, even when sensual desire starts to emerge, you can bring up these reflections to help counter it. Obviously, there's other aspects of the practice, so like practicing sense restraint, so, don't look at porn, don't get lost in all kinds of things that bring up lust and sensual desire. Be restrained in the way you use your eyes, ears, nose, tongues. smell, touch, and so on, taste, touch. Be restrained, practice mindfulness in daily life, know the dangers, so don't spend your time in nightclubs or whatever. Don't spend your time online looking at porn or whatever. There's a whole range of aspects to this, aren't there? The kind of external practices that associate developing mindfulness, wisdom, sila. Then the internal reflections, but also knowing the dangers, what to do, have a strategy. If you're falling into lust and you see this is a problem, this is something you want to deal with, how are you going to deal with it? What will you do? There's the external strategy, maybe walk away or turn the thing off. The internal strategy, how you turn your mind away, a meditation object that you can turn to, a reflection that you can bring up to counter the desire. Practice of patience as well. There's a whole range of practices we do, and we have to learn how to get better at them. That's the skill of the practitioner. At first you're countering sensual desire as a hindrance to samadhi, hindrance to wholesome dhammas arising. If you get really good at it and develop your practice further, well, you're actually countering sensual desire and lust as the very basis of attachment to the body. The delusion that this body is to be attached, to be clung to as something pleasurable, desirable. But as with all aspects of the practice, the deeper insights come out of the initial insights, and the initial insights are just countering sensual desire as a hindrance, as an obsession of a mind, as an obstruction of mind. Just work with that first. And keep going.
Sadhu. Lompo. The next question. Do we have a set amount of karma raga we have to work through, and the more we investigate and not give in to it, it diminishes? Could you say on an abhidhammic level, there are seeds that have been planted previously that need to be dealt with before the body can be let go of?
Yeah, it sounds sort of like it is, isn't it? Like, since you've been born, even as a child, you're attaching to your body. You seek pleasure, you run away from pain. That's the basis for sensual desire, is your attachment to this body as a self, me, mine, myself, my body, and then the feelings that we get from it. And as we grow up, that gets more sophisticated. So, as an adult, when you're a kid, hopefully you don't watch porn, who knows these days, but you're not going to the extremes, but you still enjoy pleasure of all kinds. Nice food, nice things, different pleasurable experiences. And that becomes more sophisticated, and obviously as you get older, sexual pleasure becomes much more prominent in the conditioning process. But also, the associated things, desire for pleasant feeling, pleasant, attractive things, clothes and possessions and things that accompany the idea of being somebody who has power, who has freedom, who has wealth, and has the ability to engage or indulge sexual desire, say. On and on it goes. So yes, we've been building it up for a long time now, and probably for many lifetimes. But even if you don't believe in past life, future life, just look at this life, it's enough. We've been doing it for ages, letting lust kind of wander around our mind. They say, the average unenlightened person is every few minutes in one way or another, some form of lustful, sensual thought will be coming up on average. That's often, that's a lot. So you've got a lot of work. That's why it's the hardest thing to uproot for most people. So you need to use a whole package of practice, starting with just basic precepts, mindfulness of your precepts, of your actions, of your speech, and in lifestyle, developing a lifestyle that promotes restraint, carefulness, modesty, so you're not engaging the sensual desire too much and building it up. And then, of course, developing mindfulness and insight through meditation, hearing the Dhamma and then meditating. And it's all countering desire, and sometimes, as you may have experienced or other people have experienced, you're practicing, and it seems like the more you practice, the more your desires come up. If you read Ajahn Chah's biography, there's this period where he was having to deal with really strong lust all the time, regularly. It can be like that. It can get. It can come out really strongly for periods of time, and sometimes it's you clear away other things from your mind, and then lust will come up. So sometimes people, they've been working to clear away anger and negativity, and they just done that, and they're feeling much more happy in themselves. They lose their temper less, and then suddenly lust comes up. Hindrances and defilements are like that. They're just constantly plaguing you. So you have to be ready, and you have to keep developing these practices. But there may be some periods where it's stronger than others, and then external conditions affect you as well. So obviously if you're meeting a person or even many people who stimulate lust in you, well, then you may have to make changes in your lifestyle and avoid them or move away from them or do things so that you've got more space to contemplate, and so on. There's a whole range of practices and different aspects of the practice that you have to develop here. And you could even say the whole practice is based around this in one way or another. And a lot of our anger is simply coming from frustrated sexual desire as well. The more you practice, the more you might realize that. Just not getting what you want in one way or another to do with sensual desire, the desire for money, wealth, fame, fortune, it's all linked to that. So the more you practice, the more you're unraveling the way your mind is conditioned, the way it works. So the heart of it, you could say, is the practice, the development of a super meditation, focusing the mind on the unattractive side of the body. But there's all this accompanying aspects of the practice which you can also put effort into learning and being aware of. Especially if you do retreats, keep the 8 precepts, go into monastic situations, you'll really see it clearly, because those situations are so peaceful and limit the sexual and sensual desire you might have, that you start to see it very strongly. Whereas when you're out in the world, you've always got this chance to indulge, so you're perhaps not so fully aware of it. Your mind is on a different level. So perhaps it's harder. I mean, that's why the Buddha gave us the 5 precepts for family life, living out in the world. Maybe that's more manageable. The 8 precepts are more for retreats, monastic situations. But there's plenty to practice with, so be prepared. Don't wait until lust is bothering you to start thinking about this. Start today. Develop a super practice from here onwards, I would recommend.
Sadhu. Lompo. The next question. Was Lompo Jia the quickest practitioner to attain Anagami in 3 pansa? Was it because his samadhi was so deep? Is it true he reached Nirodha Sampatti?
It's not really my place to comment on the development of Maggapala in other monks, especially senior monks. He's passed away now, but you can read his biography, you can listen to other colleagues or monks from his era talking about him a bit. If you study the books, some of it's out there. I did talk to him a little bit about his practice when I met him on a number of occasions, and he did actually teach me about Nirodha Samapatti, how to enter it and who can enter it and those things. And pretty much what he said matched what you can read from the words of the Buddha and the sort of traditional teachings on Nirodha Samapatti, that it's the deepest state of samadhi, only anagamis and arahants can attain it. So yes, he seemed to be able to, he had experience of that, he seemed to have been able to attain that. Whether he, it's not a race, so it's not like he holds the world record for being the quickest anagami. That's a pretty worldly way of looking at it. That's why I say I'm not really feel it's my place to comment on it, but he is known to have realized the 4 stages of Margapala very quickly in his bhikkhu life. And a few other monks have, like Lumpur Tongrat, one of Ajahn Chah's teachers, also considered very quick. Lumpur Buddha, another monk, great, considered to be an enlightened monk, also very quick. And of course, in the time of the Buddha, many people seem to have realized the Dhamma very quickly. So at least it gives us the inspiration it's possible. Some people have a lot of accumulated barami and good qualities, and they also practice in a very committed and sincere way. That's also important. It doesn't just happen like that. And Lumpur Jia is known for his absolute commitment to the practice, respect for his teacher, Lumpur Man, but also commitment to the practice, full on. And that was in his character, that if you ever met him, he was full on, very intense kind of character. Didn't do anything by halves, didn't waste time, didn't get lost in distraction. So, of the various monks I met that were considered to have reached enlightenment quickly, he certainly seemed convincing in the sense you could believe, this is someone who would just not consider his sort of personal comfort and well-being in other ways, other aspects of his life. He'd quite happily set everything aside, even put his life at stake for practicing for enlightenment. He definitely seemed like that was the kind of monk he was. So very inspiring. And obviously his students really loved and respected him. But I don't think I can give you much more detail on his life. There is a biography out now, you can read that, maybe that will help.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, one of the 10 reflections is to no longer live according to worldly aims and values. I wish to live with this principle, but as a lay person still working in the society, how do I do this?
Well, as a lay person in following the lay life, you have to use a lot of wisdom. So keep listening to the Dhamma and reflecting on the Dhamma. And one important reflection is the perception of impermanence. So whatever job you do is impermanent. The people you're involved with are impermanent. One day they won't be there, one day you won't be there, one day you won't be doing that job. You have a higher goal, which is practicing for Nibbana, to realize the end of suffering, to penetrate the Four Noble Truths, and so on. You keep trying to return to that goal and bring up the factors of the Eightfold Noble Path as much as you can with that goal in mind. But reflect on impermanence, because as you work, obviously we tend to get very attached to the people, the affairs of that job, those activities, what it brings up in our mind, our reactions and emotions, the energy we lose in that job, we get tired and so on. But in the end, it's just producing the 4 requisites for you and your family. And that's not a small thing, that's an important thing. Maybe there's people who depend on you and you're looking after, and that's fine. But keep it in perspective. It's a job that you will end one day. And you may do good in that job. Some jobs people do a lot of service and good, but it will not be forever. It's not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. So you try and keep that in your mind, and then of course try to follow the Noble Eightfold Path the best you can. So even if other people don't keep the precepts, try to keep the precepts. Other people are not very mindful, you're trying to develop mindfulness. Other people are not trying to abandon unskillful states of mind, you are trying to abandon them, and so on. You try to practice the Dhamma in whatever way you can and do things that support the Dhamma rather than things that counter the Dhamma and going to lead you into more suffering, more stress, more problems, more delusion. You do the best you can in the situation you're in, and maybe make a long-term goal. When you're ready, when your responsibilities are less, maybe you can do a lot more Dhamma practice, do more retreats, or even go and spend more time in monasteries, maybe even ordain. You try and make some long-term goals, perhaps.
Sadhu Lompo. Next question. Dear Ajahn, according to the Abhidharma, there are two types of people born as a result of their resultant karma. People with three roots, Tihetuka Patisandhi, and two roots, Dvihetuka Patisandhi. People with two roots are destined in this life, cannot attain higher level of meditation or wisdom. We need to wait until next life. How do we know that we are two roots or three roots? If we are two roots, should we stop meditation and just focus on Sila and Dana so that in our next life we can be reborn as three roots being?
If you're listening to this talk, you're probably three roots, so I think you'll be all right. Just keep practicing. But even if you've convinced yourself, possibly in a deluded way, that you're only two roots, and you might have that thought, oh, today I did something really stupid, I'm just so full of attachments, I'm so greedy, I'm so angry, I'm so deluded, I've only got two roots. Maybe you'll convince yourself like that. Doesn't matter, just keep practicing. If you can meditate, meditate. If you listen to the Dhamma, listen. You just do the best you can with who you are and the situation you are in. These five khandhas, this body and mind we've inherited it from our former self. We've got to do the best we can with it. And it's to be used as a vehicle for cultivating the Noble Eightfold Path, for penetrating the Four Noble Truths. So I really wouldn't worry too much about two roots, three roots. Obviously some people are slow, some people find it hard. But some people are slow and find it hard, but they still keep going. Just keep practicing. Just appreciate you've been born as a human, you're intelligent, and as I said, if you're listening to this talk, you're perfectly well capable of practicing Dhamma. Otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this talk, I say. The deer and the kangaroos outside this door, because we're in the forest here and there are lots of animals just outside the door, they can't practice the Dhamma. Whether they got two roots, three roots, they're not bothered by it either. Maybe there's some animal wisdom there. They don't make a problem out of it. They just carry on eating grass. But they have a tough time, don't they? They don't know the Dhamma, they can't know the Dhamma this life. So feel sorry for them and appreciate your human birth. You have intelligence, you've come this far in your life. You definitely have what it takes to learn the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma. So just build on that. You study the Abhidhamma, it's teaching you to analyze, and there's many things you can learn from that. It's not bad or wrong, but you have to keep perspective, and you're learning the whole range of human consciousness and human existence and the way things are, analysing everything out, analysing form into all its component parts and breaking down the mind and moments of consciousness. And that can be very useful and helpful, but it also can be kind of overwhelming, can't it? And in the end you kind of feel you can't move because you've got too much information there, or too many things. So try and keep the practical side of your practice going. Practice mindfulness meditation every day. Set aside doubts, questions you can't answer that you may get from the Abhidhamma. Maybe just set them aside until your mind develops further, and then maybe it will make more sense. We're not here to confuse ourselves, we're here to clear up confusion. And you have to accept your knowledge and ability will develop over time. So like when I first started practicing and studying the Dhamma, so much I didn't understand. I felt a bit frustrated. I thought, oh, I'm never going to learn all this. I'm not going to know all this. But you don't have to know everything in the Tripitaka. If you have that kind of mind and it helps you to be peaceful, understand things, learn things, it can be a great benefit. But you don't have to learn everything in the Tripitaka to be able to practice what the Buddha taught. You learn enough to practice, and that varies from person to person. So if there's a question you can't answer yourself yet, if you think about it and you think maybe it doesn't matter, well, just put it on one side. It's quite interesting doing that. You put a question on one side for a year. If it's that important, you can pick it up in a year. Make a diary or make a note of it and say, question to be answered next year. Come back next year, open the file or open the diary, read that question again and see how you react differently or if you have any different understanding at that time. It's quite interesting, and you'll notice how as your practice develops over the years, usually over a long time, your mind changes and some questions drop away altogether. You realize they're really not that important. Other new questions come in, of course, but things change. So be aware of that.
Sadhu, Lompo. Next question. Dear Lompo, when I meditate, my mind sometimes becomes very peaceful in certain situations. I can only feel awareness, being aware of awareness only. In other words, it is so empty and only awareness manifest without having any object like breath or any thoughts. Then I just sit like that until bell rings. Is this the correct way to practice?
I think this is quite a common kind of question. We have sometimes to check, double check where our mind's at, what's happening. It's quite possible that in the practice of mindfulness meditation, mindfulness directed to an object, the mind becomes so refined that the experience of the body, the feelings and the sensations of the body disappear, fade, and even the hindrances normally affecting the mind, greed, anger, delusion, worry, fear, doubt, drop away. Either they drop away and you're still mindful now just of the mind itself, and you're fully aware because you know you were fully mindful up to that point. So you know why things have dropped away, what led to what. And you're not in much doubt because you know you're mindful, and you just carry on practicing, observing the mind. And you could say, oh yeah, I'm observing the empty mind. Don't say that too much because you start filling your mind up with concepts again, but you know what I mean, I think. Or the other quite common experience is the mind is not fully aware, fully mindful, just observing itself and experiencing, for want of a better word, emptiness. It's not that, it's dullness. And this is a big obstacle and a very common obstacle, is that the mind, because of the lack of stimulation, and maybe the body has sort of faded into the background, and there's no particular strong thoughts or moods bothering you, the mind goes dull. And so it's not fully aware, certainly not able to develop any insight, and maybe not even mindful of an object anymore. It's mindful of dullness, or it's just indulging in dullness. So you have to double check, you have to check at that moment. So often they say, well, take a few deep breaths, re-establish awareness on the breath. You can even open your eyes. You can devise experiments, things to just check what's going on, whether you're dull or not. There shouldn't be, we're aiming to practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness, whether one attains deep states of samadhi or not. There shouldn't be moments when you're kind of somewhere else, blanked out, not knowing what's going on. That's a state of dullness. That's not helpful. You want to avoid that. You should be mindful, your aim is to be mindful from moment to moment to moment. If you're on the breath, with the breath, until the breath is so subtle, it may disappear from your awareness, but you're still aware. That's the aim, whatever the meditation object. And practicing vipassana, insight meditation, the same. You're not aiming to be blank or dull. You've got to know things. You've got to know this body and the sankharas arising. So mindfulness and insight are your prime aim in your practice of meditation. So if there's dullness, you have to be careful to make sure it's not dullness. If it's true state of samadhi, the mind is very empty, the hindrances are not there, there should be enough knowledge to know that. And certainly as you withdraw from that, you know what just happened, and you can contemplate the different factors of that state of samadhi that you just entered or withdrew from. Again, it's not dullness. So that's where you have to check. But if you're not dull, well, carry on practicing. Keep your mindfulness, keep going.
Sadhu. Lompo. The next question. Dear Ajahn, I have been practicing 32 body part contemplation for 2 weeks. I start my day with reading a sutta, listen to an audio recording of 5 to 6 body parts. Within a week, I could go through all 32 body parts. After which, I mentally lay out 5 body parts on the table and reflect on their imperfections. Then I look at the images of decomposition or the skeleton of the body. I notice my mind becomes still. I find the above process very time-consuming and laborious, as it seems that I am trying to do a lot. How can I adjust my practice? Do I just chant and reflect on the body decomposition and skeleton?
Well, the chanting and reflection in the beginning is good, and you can do that, just reflecting on your body any time, any place. But if you've been, as you've been describing, you're meditating on the 32 parts, you have to be willing to give that practice some time, because you'll get more out of it. And to be honest, if you really get into your meditation on the body, and most people find this very difficult, but if you really get into it, you can spend hours on it. You remember the story of the monk and the nun in the time of the Buddha contemplating the body. They're just walking around all day long, contemplating their body, seeing their body and other people as skeletons and so on. It's like that. When you really get into it, it does take time, but it is tiring, certainly in the beginning. As you practice more and the samadhi improves, well, you get more lightness of body and mind. The piti and sukha come up to support the effort you're making, and that helps. And of course, if you see some benefit, you see the lust being countered and the tendency to attach to the body, identify with your body fading, well, you get some inspiration to keep doing it, don't you? A good guideline is maybe just work in the beginning, maybe 15 minutes of body contemplation in one period of meditation. So you may spend part of your meditation contemplating the breath, being mindful, practicing mindfulness of breathing, cultivating metta, and so on. and then spend 15 minutes on your body. Is a good starting point. And you could go through the 32 parts, as you said, learn to visualize them, learn to put your attention where they are, visualize them, notice them. Depends how your mind works. Some people like to ask questions, investigate in that way. And what people find is sooner or later, and it could be a while, 2 weeks is good, but it could be another year or two, sooner or later, you start to resonate with one particular part of the body or aspect of the body. So it could be the body as a corpse, or a corpse in a certain part of the process of decay, or it could be just a body part, part of the skeleton or an organ or the skin or whatever. Sooner or later, a part or an aspect of the body becomes more prominent. Maybe visual images pop up in your mind quite naturally, or your mind goes to those images quite naturally and stays with them. Maybe one becomes peaceful contemplating a certain part of the body, and that usually is a clue that you can really develop that particular aspect of the body more and more. So don't be discouraged. It is a challenging practice, and that's why so few people do it, but then that's why so few people are enlightened. We have to really start turning attention more to being mindful of the body and appreciating the role of it in the practice of training this mind to abandon defilements. It is actually very central.
Sadhu. Lompo. Next question. I understand when people act unskillfully, it is their karma they create. However, when I have to face people full of greed or being aggressive, and I cannot avoid these people at work or in the family, my mind could not help being affected and brought down. What can I do?
Well, when you're ready, you become a nun or a monk. But until that point, you have to learn how to be very patient with the people around you. You practice a lot of loving kindness and compassion for them. They're just following the influence of their own defilements. They don't know any different, and they don't know how to deal with the defilements. They don't recognize a defilement as a defilement. So of course they follow them, and defilements lead on to unpleasant behavior, selfish, greedy, aggressive. This is the way of unenlightened human beings. We unfortunately do this. People don't keep precepts, they're not generous, they're not kind. Most people have some of this in them, but it's only occasional maybe. So you have to be very patient and just do the best you can in the situation you're in. And learn some skillful ways how to be patient and carry on your practice while people around you are not practicing. So don't be too critical of them. Don't waste your time criticizing them. You can't spend your time blaming them. Just accept, okay, these people aren't practicing. They haven't heard the good word of the Dhamma yet, maybe. So you just have to accept that. Put most of your energy into your own practice, doing that a lot. But don't look down on others. Just try and develop good relations with other people. Be kind, be sympathetic to them. But put a lot of energy into your own practice as much as you can. And as I said, gradually your mind will tire of the ways of the world, people's behavior. You'll get tired, bored, fed up with it, and eventually you'll just want to live the life of Dhamma and maybe become a monk or a nun, or go on long retreats, or just arrange your life so you can practice Dhamma and don't have so much interaction with all these people. But sometimes that takes a bit of time. So maybe it's a long-term goal for you.
Sadhu. Lompo. The next question. Dear Lompo, if one's samadhi is not very deep, can one survive on faith alone for many years?
Yes, one can survive on faith alone. But as you say, faith alone, faith needs friends. The way the Dhamma works is there's always supportive qualities that we can develop. So faith alone is a bit weak, a bit wobbly, perhaps. We need to develop patience and kindness and hiriyottappa, staying away from unwholesome states of mind, unwholesome behaviors. We need to develop knowledge, at very least, study and learn Dhamma. We need to associate with Kalyana Mitta. What did the Buddha say? Ananda says, Kalyana Mitta, associating with wise, noble friends is so important. I think it's at least half of the practice. And the Buddha said, no, don't say that, Ananda, it's the whole of the practice. So if you have just faith alone, spend more time with Kalyana Mitta. They will help. They'll bring you faith. They'll encourage you in different ways. They'll give you good examples. So find some Kalyana Mitta that will help. And see the danger of not developing wisdom and insight, not studying the Dhamma, not listening to the Dhamma. Faith alone can fade. Until one is Arya Pugala, faith and other qualities are always a bit uncertain. They can fade, we can lose our way for whatever reason. So you want to bolster up your faith. Just as, you build a house, you want to make every aspect of your house strong, long-lasting, long-enduring. You do a business, you want to make sure your business is strong in terms of the accounts and the product you're selling, and then the sales and the quality of the work people do. There's many aspects that will make a business work well. Every aspect of life is like that. We need to develop different supportive qualities in each situation for the whole thing to be successful. So Dhamma is like that. Faith alone is vital, is the most important of all these internal riches that we're developing, but it needs other qualities to support it.